When we first started a team, I was on a real estate team. So I was on a real estate team. I was an agent on that team. My business partner at that time when we launched, I worked for another real estate team. And I feel like a lot of teams start from a team model. It actually happens quite a bit. Man, I could really do this better. Like that was my thought. I was like, man, I could build this better.
These were painful lessons, could only be learned one way, because I'm listening to guys like Hermosi, I'm listening to guys like Gary Vee, and they've lived all of these experiences before. These are not unique experiences. And even though you hear, they're telling you exactly what you're going to go through. But until you've really lived it, you don't really know it.
I love real estate. I love what real estate provides for me in the form of access, leverage, income, mobility, right? I love all those things. Contrary to what you might believe based on like the YouTube and the Instagram and all the stuff on my faces everywhere, I would like to sell real estate and not have to be the dude on the billboard and all the flyers. That's what's crazy is like, there's also those other people who go, I'm starting a team so that more people have my face all over the place. I don't care.
Go back and realize, why did you start the team to begin with? Like write it out. With it, what are you actually trying to accomplish? What is your end game, your end goal? If it's make more money, then go to the numbers. What makes you more money?
Welcome to the Refuge Podcast. This is Danny Gould here with Keith Anderson and Isaac Guzman. Really excited today, guys. We're going to be talking about the existential question. Why do we start a team?
Oh, man.
Why are we masochists? Do we hate ourselves? Do we want to be celebrities? Do we want money? What are the real reasons that we here in the real estate community, the few that decide to become team leaders, why do we do it? And does it even make sense anymore? I think that's a burning question in a lot of people's minds right now as they're looking at their P&L, maybe last couple of years P&L. They're starting to question, why am I doing this to begin with? So, Keith, first of all, why did you start the team, man?
Yeah.
Like, why did you start your team?
I was just thinking about that. So when we first started a team, I was on a real estate team. So I was on a real estate team. I was an agent on that team. My business partner at that time when we launched, I worked for another real estate team. And I feel like a lot of teams start from a team model. It actually happens quite a bit. And we were getting massacred on splits, which I understand now looking back why and the leverage of that point, but there was no grace there post the knowledge of what we were working for, and there should have been, but that's a whole different conversation. And so we looked at the team model and we realized like, man, we're doing all the coaching, we're doing all the training, we're doing all of this stuff for the rest of our teammates for free, just because we're just servants and we just want to help others succeed. And we thought to ourselves, man, I could really do this better. Like that was my thought. I was like, man, I could build this better. I could do this bigger. I could build this at scale. This doesn't seem too difficult. So I think it started out with the desire of like scratching an itch of doing something that I know we're capable of and excited. It's like, think about getting a new video game or getting a brand new puzzle. It was exciting to be able to do something we hadn't done before, like scratching that itch. But at the back of the mind, it was still, I could make a lot more money just doing this team on my own than it would be keep working for this team. Like that was my mindset. I have all the skills and capability to start a team and build this out. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I have a general rubric being on one. And I know that I could sell real estate and make more money and run this team myself than work for another model that was taking advantage of our skills and go that route. That was kind of my thought. I could do it better and I could sure as heck make a lot more money.
Yeah, that's interesting. What about you, Isaac? Like, what are some of the reasons that you decided to start this new venture, this new team that you're starting right now? And in your previous life, right? What were some of the reasons that you saw kind of like the coaching class that you worked with and everything? Like, what were some of the motivating reasons behind them starting their teams?
So I'll speak for myself first. And in that, so I had helped run a really big team for a long time. And when I decided to part ways and I was going to get back into it, I'll be honest, one of the reasons was, hey, I already know how to do it, right? Like it's easier than like not doing it because I know how to do it, right? So there was that piece of it where it didn't feel like a very daunting thing, right? But the other thing is this. I love real estate. I love what real estate provides for me in the form of access, leverage, income, mobility, right? I love all those things. I'm also, contrary to what you might believe based on like the YouTube and the Instagram and all the stuff on my faces everywhere, I would like to sell real estate and not have to be the dude on the billboard and all the flyers. And that's what's crazy is like, there's also those other people who go, I'm starting a team so that more people have my face all over the place.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, I don't care, right? Like, I don't care either way. More power to you if you want to be the guy on the billboard. What I learned was, hey, here's how you sell a lot of real estate without having to be the person who's like on the bus bench or whatever it is. And I'm like, because the person on the bus bench, by the way, right? Because of the way that we structure is our production goes under our agent's names, right? And the listing has their picture on it or whatever. And we're about irrelevant. The point is this: when you're the dude on the billboard or the gal on the billboard, you're also the person whose neck people want to wring when something goes wrong. And I'm not super interested in that, dude. Like, I got a family, I got a life. I'm going to go coach soccer in a couple hours. Like, I don't want to be the guy who's the face of, because by the way, yeah, you're the face of the good stuff, but dude, you're the face of the bad stuff too. Right? Like, I'm going to punch that guy. So I'm like, cool. If I could leverage and lead and succeed through other people, and I already know how to do it. Awesome. The things I've also seen in coaching people is, and this one's super interesting, super common. And sometimes it turns out okay, but there's a lot of people who get into being a team leader because they were told you should start a team.
Yeah, that was
They've been hearing it forever.
Well, I mean, in all reality, we could be straight with it. The red model, the Gary Keller model down the stretch was grow, expand, leverage, delegate. And so that was where a lot of us got our base footing for real estate teams to begin with. Gary Keller was the one that really kind of invented the team model, in reality. And it wasn't really even a team. It was more of a leveraged concept, right? Like, hey, you're a great agent. In order for you to take the next step in production, you need a team behind you to help offset that leverage, which created the Rainmaker model in itself, right? And then what ended up happening is people got comfy with the thought of, oh, I'll just do listings, I'll hand off buyers, and my transaction coordinator / assistant will take care of the rest. And then they got this like little glimmer of hope of, man, I could just hand off everything, do nothing, and make the same amount of money. So I think what ended up scaling for a lot of people, and this is one of those things that I think actually people have a motivation for. Is laziness a motivation factor here, or like less is more concept? Because I know there's a lot of people that think of like, how can I make the same amount of money and do less and just do absolutely nothing? And I know a lot of team leaders are cool with making 15 to 30 grand a month and doing next to nothing. Like their goal is like, I'm going to sit here in this place of viability and I don't have to sell real estate and I can just coast and make the same amount of money as when I was selling real estate on the side or full time. I can just golf every day. I can just keep the same quality of life.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot there too.
That's a really interesting idea that you just threw out there, Keith, because I think that, when I got into real estate, from day one, I branded myself as a team. So from day one, like I always knew that I wanted to be a team, not because I had my aspirations at that point were make a lot of money in real estate and like be on $1 million listing. Like that's what I wanted to do, right? I wanted $1 million listing Silicon Valley, right? And that was going to be me. I needed a team, right? So for me, a lot of it was like, hey, be sexy, be the guy, the main guy out there. Like that was, I was like 23. Yeah. Well, my coach always said, do you want to be sexy or do you want to be rich? Pick one.
And Danny was like,
sexy. 100%.
You chose sexy that one last.
I chose sexy. I chose sexy. Now I'm in my 30s. Now I'm choosing rich. So, but yeah, I mean, 100%. That was, I got into it, not necessarily for the wrong reasons, right? But for the reasons that I think a lot of people like mistakenly get into it, which is they see it as like the grass being greener. Now, I think it's market specific because to be honest with you, in my market, you can sell 30 houses a year and make $1 million. You can sell 30 houses, make $1 million, and probably net somewhere in like the 600 to 700 range, right? Yeah. After expenses, after everything. And you can't do that in a lot of other markets unless you are running a big team. And so I think that you really need to figure out, like you need to reverse engineer what your income goals are, right? And then figure out how am I going to get there? And what's the path of least resistance to get there? So to your point, Keith, I think a lot of people look at, hey, if I fully leverage myself have buyers agents, listing specialists, all these things, and I can, sit at home which we all know is a lie, by the way, right? Like we're like sold this like idea or this lie of being able to like fully just like let the business run. What's interesting is I'm not going to name any names, but I actually asked this question on a panel of some of the highest producing agents at EXP at the time, like number one and like number 5 teams at EXP. And I asked them point blank, I said, have you ever seen anyone, right? Like we talk about building a business, but a business, the definition of a business is being able to walk away for months at a time and having it run itself. Otherwise, you just have a high paying job. Have you ever seen anyone be able to have the team run fully on its own without any input from the team leader for weeks on end? And the answer from both of them was no. The answer from both of them was no. And so it's interesting because like, I feel like this is one of the only industries where like we build a business, but it's not it's not fully delegatable. At least I have not seen a single person be able to fully delegate their team to other operators. And that's, that's coming from some really, really like top dogs, right? Now, there could be some exceptions out there that I'm not aware of, but it is kind of an interesting.
I haven't seen the full delegation as well yet. And I mean, we're really close. Like our team really close to this now, but like our box has changed. And so our roles have changed, right? Like, so it's not about the operator in an individual space. Now it's scaling and building nationally, and it's building out a national brand and national company. So now my role, I'm still working. It's just a completely different facet of the business. But I do think that there's an exit opportunity for people, but it's being okay with a very small level of viability. And what happens when you start running that real estate game and you start building a business, the question always comes up of, I want more fame, I want more opportunity, I want more business. And so if people were okay with stopping at a certain point and just saying, I'm going to coast here, that if truly their goal was, I don't want to work, I want to have a steady stream of income, I'm going to put a sales manager in place and I'm going to split it with them, but I built it from the ground up and I'm just going to sit right here at this place of viability. You could get out. You really could. But you better hope you don't lose that leader that's sitting in there, because at some point they're going to be questioning, like, what am I doing? Like running this team for this other guy, I could just run this team myself and I'm just going to leave and bring all my agents. Like that legitimately becomes a question down the stretch. And that's why it's so hard to ever accomplish, is because there's always an exit. So there's not, every time you try and exit, you lose your people and then you have to come back into the weeds again. So I think that the only feasible exit that you're describing is to get so big that you can truly just become an investor of your own business and fully leverage out. But we're talking hundreds of agents. You basically would have to be a brokerage owner and fully step out. Like that's why so many people end up going the brokerage route, because they'd rather make less, but like build it at scale. And then just like, I'm done with working this machine. And even them, they're still heavily involved in the vision of the company. Like even they don't get fully out. The team model is very tough. It requires so much. Now, I read a book the other day and I got a quote from it that absolutely was fantastic. And it was like a big aha for me down this last couple weeks. And it was, the more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. Let that sink. The more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is, period. And so like, that's a great point. And so if you think about the Rainmaker models and all these models where people were like trying to grow and add this income and scale it out, they're extremely valuable to their business. In fact, they make up majority, without them, it doesn't run. So because of that, their business is worthless. It's literally worthless. They're working a job. So the only way to truly do what you're describing, which is the freedom side of things, is to become the least valuable asset for your business. When you become the least valuable piece, your business actually scales and becomes valuable because it's operating solely without yourself. The hard part is everybody that typically starts a real estate team, they start from a place of selling real estate. So they're always brought back. They're always trying to grow, and they think they know better than everybody else that's in their business functioning it and growing it. And so that never path of escaping is gone. Like it just doesn't exist. So yeah, I think it's tough. I think that's where people start with their vision of starting a team. Like, I'm going to work less, make about the same amount of money, if not more. Love it. Let's do it. Let's run. And then they get into it and they realize, what the hell did we do? So the question that I, come up with is, why start a team? And I think we can narrow it down, right? It's more money, or it's either more money, it's either less work, more time. It's kind of the same box, right? More time back. Like, they want the time aspect, or they want fame, power. They want to feel important. And that's more of an ego stroke, but it's just genuine. It's like, I want to be popular. I want to be on TV. I want to have this big team. I want to be an impact to the community. I want people to know who I am. Like, it's a legitimate thing. Like, they want to be on social media. They want to be famous. It's period. For me, I'm good if I'm never behind a camera. Like, I don't even want to go on social media. If I could just build a business and make a lot more money, spend more time golfing, sign me up. Like, that's where I want to do my life. So, whereas I know my business partner, Austin, he loves being on camera. Like, that's his vibe. He wants to be popular. He would love to co-partner with Sirhan and go run a show. Like, that would be his vibe. So, I think there's different reasons behind different things, right? But I guess the question that I would ask you then, Danny and Isaac, as I'm coming to think about it, when the reality of why they originally started doesn't happen, what is keeping them in those boxes? Because, like, that's my question, right? Like, they started it because they wanted to make more money. So what happens when they're not making money at all? Why do they not quit? Like the whole point was to make more money. So why not, if that was your true why, then why not shift and do something that actually is going to make you more money when you're losing money?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to that, right? There's multiple, and there's more than two, but the two that jump out at me based on my personal experience and experience of people that I've coached and worked with. One is sunken cost. That's the pretty obvious one, right? Okay. I've already spent this much time, energy, and money. I just can't give up now. They can't just cut their losses. And that's human nature. And I don't care how smart and sophisticated and well-funded you were and how productive you've been in the past. Everyone's susceptible to making mistakes like that. That's human error, right? The other piece is this. And by the way, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but some of them, now here's the thing. Some of them understand the concept that sometimes you got to take a step backward to take a step forward, right? And I think that the test there is, do you know why you're losing money, right? And do you know what your run rate is, right? What your runway is for that amount of loss? Have you planned for it? And are you seeing progress, meaningful progress, to where you can kind of intersect where it is going to become profitable, right? Because some of the biggest companies in the world that we know were taking massive losses up front. But it wasn't because but here's the difference. They weren't caught off guard by that. They knew it. They knew. They had a plan. They knew there was going to be profitable by X and Y, and they knew they were making meaningful progress to that intersection, right? Unfortunately, that is the minority of people. Like 1% maybe? Maybe like one person I've ever met, right? And I'm like only slightly exaggerating. I think it's the sunken cost. The other one is, I think there's an ego part to it, right? I don't want to give up. There's also, I think of one very specific person that I helped coach and kind of disassemble their team eventually. And they just cared too much about the agents. Really? And and by the way, this is a different version of ego. They had this thought that if I shut down the team, these people are screwed. The reality is those people aren't screwed. You did let them down, but they're not destitute without you. So there was that part where they had to let go of the ego part, saying, listen, yes, they were let down by you. You were letting them down 100%. You did not do what you wanted to accomplish with them in partnership with them. You did not give them what they needed. But it's not your responsibility to take on the burden of what happens after this. They're an adult. They made a choice to partner with you. And that is what happens. And by the way, if roles were reversed, understand that you'd probably want them to cut ties too and just let you go and be on your way. Right. And so that's what ended up happening. So there was the ego part, the sunken costs. I think other people are more strategic, but that's the minority.
Yeah. No, I think that's crazy, but I think it's a really good point, because the ego goes so far. And I guess then it has to be all ego if they don't know their way out. They can't figure out a way to claw out. They don't know even where they're going. They know they're losing money. So when you're giving that person, so if that person got a lifeline and they still don't take it, is that all ego then? Just 100%?
100%. And
yeah,
whether we edit this to be later in the podcast or it sticks right here, right now, one of the reasons that we had the conversation that we had off air before we started this is because I don't have an ego. By the way, I'm not losing money in my team, but I do see a faster way to get the success that I want to accomplish by forming a strategic partnership. Right. Yep. And so I would actually argue that like, if I were losing money right now, because I'm not losing money, but if I were, and I didn't take you up on the offer to at least explore that, they're the only thing I can look at. Like at the end of the day, I'm looking my sons, my wife right in the eye and like have to really fess up to the truth. I'd be like, yeah, it's ego.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It really, really is tough. Cause I've also thought about the flip side of the coin, right? Like if someone came to me and they said, hey, Keith, we'd like to buy your company. I'd be like, okay, like I'm listening. What do you make me an offer? Like, I'm
not mad at the start of that conversation,
but I'm going to listen. Like, sign me up for that convo. Like anybody out there, listen to the podcast. If you want to buy my team, send me an email. I'll listen. I will gladly take that phone call and listen because business is business. Like every business is a sellable asset. Every company is like that. And we're all here. Like the reason, maybe it's because I'm detached from the ego. I don't care enough. Like, and I think it goes beyond that. And I think you're right, Isaac. And it's the one where you said, I don't want to let someone down, right? And so many people have that process, but it's because those people care so much what other people think. They care so much about the perception of others that it actually influences your own decisions and everything that you do. What you wear is defined by what other people think. What you eat and how you look is defined by what everybody else thinks. The decisions we make all day long typically are defined by what everybody else thinks. But you get to a very, very cool space. And I'm very happy that I feel I'm almost there. And it's taken a long time for my life to get there. And I think it was having kids and being around my family to the point where like, I genuinely just don't care. As long as I'm not doing somebody wrong and like impacting my faith. And like, that's the only person, like I care what God thinks and his path for my life. And I care what my family thinks. That's about it now. And I don't want to do anybody else wrong along the way, like where I'm hurting them, because if I'm damaging them, then I'm damaging my family's name and I'm damaging my Savior's name. Like it's one of those two things. Like that's just where I'm at. So when I'm really breaking a lot of this stuff down, it's like, okay, well, I don't want to do anybody wrong by that because it's harming one of those other two boxes. But outside of that, if someone looks at me and they're like, man, I really just don't like what he's wearing. Like, that's just not, I'm like, bro, like if I'm worried about like people's perception on me, how I look, how I act, my energy and stuff like that, then I reflect that back as like, that's your trauma. That's your issue that you're going to struggle with and so forth. So when I'm making a business-like decision, I'm thinking what's right for my family first and foremost, and my health and my success. I don't care if, and there's a lot of things that I quit early on purpose that I started a golf tour campaign like last year. Some of you guys might know that. Really excited for it. Like awesome brand, super cool concept. I actually had the domain rights and like I have everything else. It's called Real Tour. Like as cool as that can be, it's a real estate industry golf league with the name Real Tour in it. Like it couldn't be any better.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it was awesome. I still love it. I might bring it back, might revive it. Don't hold me to it. But I realized that it wasn't taking me down my mission. It wasn't taking me down the path that I needed to go. And I got spread thin and I realized that I was going to start losing money and it wasn't going to be a profitable asset, which means it was going to impact my family and it wasn't going to help me along the way. So I had to cut ties. I just shut it down. I said, you know what? I'm not doing it. And I was deep, like we were invested. I had money into it. I had time. I had 2 social media videos break 1.5 million views, brand new social account, balled out, like just nuts. And I was like, dude, this is going to fly. This is going to go crazy. It didn't. It didn't. It got slow. And I think it was the market environment and so forth. But I cut ties. Do you know how many people reached out to me and said, man, why'd you do this? Like I was so excited for it. Like this was the jam. Like I was so like all over the place. And if I was in that place of caring what other people thought, I could have let them look at me like I failed. And I told them, many people, like, it didn't work. I wasn't successful at it. It didn't make sense to keep going. And I took that because I was at a place of understanding, like, it doesn't make sense if it takes away from my life, my family, my time, or my money, period. And so I shut it down as quickly as I added. And I feel like team leaders in that same bucket, they don't do that enough, or they don't put the lifeline for help enough. So to kind of give you an example, I've reached out to a lot of teams locally in our marketplace that I know in our marketplace are probably struggling. There's a lot of mid-sized, messy middle teams in our marketplace that might not be profitable. And I don't know I haven't looked at the numbers of any of these companies or anything, but I would probably suggest that at least 50 to 75% of teams under 20 agents in count that are back and forth between selling real estate are probably losing money massively, or aren't making anything, or have to sell to pay the bills.
Yeah. Well, and actually just to add to that though, real quick, right there, because it's not like, well, some of these guys probably are like literally going like in the red, but they're not their team isn't profitable, right? Like it's the team leaders production that's actually like just keeping them afloat. Right. Exactly. So what you're saying is that it's like, when you remove the team leader, it's losing money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
You have 10 agents doing
more than 75%, more than 75%, dude, like 90 plus.
It probably is. It probably is. And so then I look at that, I was like, okay, so if your company is not making any money by you doing what you're doing right now, like in fact, you're losing, and someone gave you a lifeline to say, hey, we could help double your team size and your team would immediately become profitable. And at the end of the day, your team generates you profitability every month on top of what you're selling. Why wouldn't you say yes? And I think that's the crazy part about it, is more and more the fear of failure, the fear of what people would think of that person rolling in their team, even if it meant helping their family more. That weighs more to them. And that's the ego line of sight, right? That's tough. And I think we're at a place now where the market's going to consolidate more and more. And I think great leaders should look at the fact of, we can go so much farther together than doing things by ourselves, away from people and trying to just make do and make sense of it. But imagine if the best leaders in our real estate marketplace came together and said, let's build something truly big, something that no one's ever done before, something that will actually impact the lives of agents all across the country to actually help people scale in size. And no one's done that yet. No one can, because we can't get out of our own way as leaders, the best leaders in our marketplaces. It's tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so, Keith, actually everything that you're saying right now is like hitting home in one way, shape or form, for me, because like I've either lived this myself or I've seen my friends live what you're talking about. I can add that, like, for myself personally, and just for context, right? Like I built a team. I had like at one point 35 agents on my roster, and then I dissolved it last year. Right. And so now I'm like in the process of rebuild.
Dang it, Danny.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I should have, if only I knew. But honestly, there are a lot of, there's so many reasons for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just so many reasons, personal reasons that I just like, I was like, we need a hard reset, right? Hard reset. And I would say that for me personally, one of the reasons that I stuck, like kind of continue to go and, in 2021, I went from 4 agents to like probably like 14, 15 by the end of the year. And then in 2022, that's when I had like the massive growth year. So I ended that year. At some point that year, I had like 35 agents on the roster. And then in 2023, so in 2021, I was still in production. In 2022, I was almost fully removed from production. And even though I sold the most amount of real estate that I ever had in 2022, I made less money in 2022 than I made in 2021. And I was still profitable, so I still made money even when you stripped out like the 4 or 5 homes that I sold, in 2022. And in 2021, I sold way more than that, but it wasn't as much as I had made as a 26-year-old selling real estate in 2017.
Correct.
As a 27-year-old in 2018, like it wasn't as much money. And so I had to ask myself, like, why am I doing this? Because I did see the light at the end of the tunnel. In fact, to Isaac's point, I hired a financial analyst. We mapped out a 10-year plan. And so I had all this data, and a 10-year roadmap that showed exactly when I was going to become profitable. And so I knew, like, hey, or not profit, but like exactly when I was going to kind of hit that goal of like where I was making money. And it was like 2 years away, like less than 2 years away. Right.
So I got a question on that real quick before you go further. So you had a financial planner give you a 10-year projection for a real estate marketplace?
I had a financial. I hired someone to build a financial model. Yes, with different splits.
When did they do it for you? Like, what year did they start and map out your 10-year?
23. So this was just a year and a half ago.
Okay, so a year and a half ago. What did they expect the purchase price to be of a home in 2033?
So that's a really good question, dude. I forget what we factored in for home appreciation, but it was a very conservative number. It was like a very conservative number.
I just think about like I've done those long-term projections now too. And this is where like somebody outside our industry comes in and they're like, yeah, we're going to project this and we're going to show you. Cause like a normal company, a Fortune 500 company, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Startup / entrepreneurship team. Shoot, I can't even predict 6 months in front of me, let alone 10 years. Like I'm thinking 10 years. I'm like, we haven't even had a team for 10 years. I'm thinking to myself, like, where would we be in 10 years? I don't know. Where's what our marketplace has done in the last decade?
Yeah. It also doesn't account for personal things that come up, life events, all these things that. So at the beginning of 2003, it was like, here's the roadmap. And then middle of 2023, life blows up, so then it's just like, uh-oh. So, I share all that, right, for one very specific reason that for me, yes, were there hints of ego there? Absolutely. Right. Like no way am I going to throw in the towel. But one of the things that I really started to enjoy was I actually felt like I was becoming a better business person by going through all of this.
Yeah.
And I knew that these were painful lessons that could only be learned one way, because I'm listening to guys like Hermosi. I'm listening to guys like Gary Vee, and they've lived all of these experiences before. And these are not unique experiences. And even though you hear it from the horse's mouth, right? And they're telling you exactly, all these things, like they're telling you exactly what you're going to go through. But until you've really lived it, you don't really know it, right? Because until you experience that pain. And so I saw it as a necessary evil, because I knew that like eventually my goal was to get into hotels, hotel ownership, hotel investing. And I knew that I needed to learn business in one way, shape, or form. To your point though, and Isaac, kind of like this rebirth, right? So to speak now, where I'm kind of experiencing this like reinvigoration to like, enter back into the real estate sector, like residential real estate sales sector, is it actually has a lot to do with the hotel investing. So like last year I partnered up with some guys, we were like, 23, they've got 23 hotels. And so, and just interacting with them over this last year, I have been able to remove my ego from basically every single business conversation. Because, they're talking about trading hotels, selling hotels, all of these different, like no attachment. There's like no emotional attachment to the outcome of the hotel, because they've got investors, they've got partners on the deal. And so basically for them, it's like, hey, when have we hit our return? When have we hit our return metrics? When is this, when have we satisfied our commitment to our investors? That's when we sell.
Yeah.
Right. And so now kind of reframing my mindset with residential real estate is it's largely in part to that, because I've been exposed now to the non-emotional side of business, right? And like, I think that when I got into real estate, it was all emotional. It was ego driven. It was because I wanted to be the largest real estate team in America. It was because of all of these reasons that literally, to be honest with you, like make no logical sense. right? And when and so just to kind of put a bow on this conversation, because I'm hijacking the podcast right now, but when you're looking at your team and you're starting a team, and there's there can be such an emotional attachment to it, and I think that's why a lot of people are afraid, like you, Keith, right? You approach 7 people that need your help, and they all said no. They're emotionally attached to their team, dude. There's only one answer there. There's only one answer. Their ego and their self-worth. Let's just call it how it is. Their self-worth is tied up into that team. And so if that team dies, dude, they die, right? Their ego dies and they don't want that. And so, but now that I've been able to kind of like see how other businesses operate and really really look at things from a non-emotional point of view, it's allowing me to come back to real estate like in a totally different frame of mind. Just be like, yo, dude, like this is, we got to be thinking about this, like what's going to drive top line and bottom line, right? Yeah. And of course, there's other things too, like obviously, being able to like make an impact on your agents' lives. These are all things that matter and are super important as well. But at the end of the day, businesses are designed, right? Like the purpose of a business is to make money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Period. And so if your emotion is getting in the way of that and your ego is getting in the way of that, then the only person you're hurting is yourself.
So my question around all of this then is, with some of these teams that started it for one reason are not following through with the second reason, what's going to be the end game? Because the market's coming, it's tightening massively right now, and people are getting pinched all over the place. So what happens? What's their like last straw opportunity? Would they rather shut down their team, quit, admit failure, than to join forces with someone else to help thrive and continue to go forward? Like, what's the final verdict? Like, what would people rather end up being like in this marketplace? Like, I know consolidation is going to happen, right? There is a ton of broker owners. Let's forget about teams for a sec. There's independent broker owners that have been literally bleeding money for years, trying to sell. They can't sell their business. It's not a sellable asset. What's stopping them from joining these cloud brokerages and finally just saying, I give up, like I'm done, or do they just go under? Do they just the blockbuster it and just let it fall to the wayside? Like, what happens?
Yeah. I mean, I've got a take on that. So this year I have brought over to my cloud-based brokerage that we're all part of, 4 independent brokers. And here's the story. What's wild is this, is that there's 2 ways to claim you care about your agents. But I believe for an independent broker specifically, there's only one way to actually show it, right? I've talked to independent brokers like, no, I'm not going to do it. It's me and my agents against the world, right? And they're basically leading their agents into a freaking, battle with the Assyrian Empire, right? Like back in the day, like they want to be the 300.
They're
right?
the martyrs.
Yeah. And they're going to march out there and they're going to die out there. And they think that by doing that, by sticking side by side with their agents and dying, right? Metaphorically speaking, that is somehow valiant and honorable. Yeah. And then you have, I'm going to say it, screw it. And you have smart people who go, well, I don't know, maybe I should explore where me and my agents can have the best systems, tech, tools, access, runway, so that we can continue this thing in the new era of real estate, right? And some end up fighting that battle, and then some end up saying, I'm going to join forces. Now, the reality is the movies and everything else makes it sexy to be the last standing. But what, to Keith's earlier point, that guy in 300 left behind a wife and a kid, dude, right? Their lives were mangled after that, right? So what destruction are you leaving behind in the name of being a valiant warrior?
XYZ.
Yeah. Right? Well, and so, by the way, in business, I am okay. Now in life, by the way, right? Maybe I'm revealing too much about the way that I think. There are things in life, principles in life that I would be willing to destroy that all for, right? Give me liberty or give me death. Like, that's a real thing, right? But in business, dude, it ain't that serious, man.
Go do something different.
This is a proxy for how we make money.
Yeah. Like you have to start to ask yourself, this is the ultimate ego test is if it's hurting my family by doing this, then what am I really doing? Like really, like if it's that obvious, it's like I'm hurting my family by not doing something different, like,
and replace, if you don't have a wife and kids and all, replace that with whatever you value highly. Right. Yeah. And it's mostly, and here's what I'll tell you, it's going to be relationships, whatever relationships. Those are the things we should value highly, whether it's your relationship with God, your relationship with your family. For me, it's both, right? And so, or it could be, anything else, but those relationships, if you're sacrificing and harming relationships for the sake of ego, man, you're in a dangerous spot. It's really dangerous.
So I love this podcast, this topic. It's a tough one, but I challenge every leader that listens, everybody that, is hearing what we're talking about today. And I challenge you, self-reflect, look at the numbers, look at the time, go back and realize, why did you start the team to begin with? Like write it out. What are you actually trying to accomplish? What is your end game, your end goal? If it's to make more money, then go to the numbers. What makes you more money? Because my challenge would be, okay, maybe it's not roll a team into something else. Maybe it's stop doing the team and sell more real estate, make more money, invest, do something different. If it was to get your time back and you're spending more time trying to run this company that you actually have less time, then what are you doing? That was you. The whole point is we all know you told your wife and your kids, I'm starting this company because I want to attend more games. I want to spend more time with you. I want to have more peace in my life. And then, you stay up later, you work more hours in the business. You are more removed from that income opportunity and you're more stressed out than you ever have been. There was a stretch a couple of years ago that I was like, how am I making less money, spending more time, and I'm more stressed than I ever was? What am I doing?
Yeah.
Like this can't keep going. Why would I trade my freedom lifestyle and making good money for a more pain-stricken, more stressful, less monetarily pleasing way of life? And for what? Is it just my ego of saying I did this? And if that's the whole point, then I need to really reflect. And so as a leader, write out why you started your company to begin with. What's the whole reason, that your vision, your why? Because we all can't have Tesla, Elon Musk, visions behind why we do stuff. Like he wants to save the human race. Like that's his vibe. He literally wants to create space travel to save the human race. Like that's literally his vision. Like that's dope. Good for him.
Yeah.
SpaceX, baby. But if that is not really our why and we're not doing it something beyond us, which I know no one started a real estate team because they want to save the human race or save the agent. Like that's not a thing. So write down your original why. Why did you begin this? And is your current place in life in line with why you originally started this? And if it's not, maybe make decisions this year. It's fourth quarter. We're coming into a new year. Like we're starting to try and change. And before the market gets even tougher, make adjustments to get yourself back on track with what your original why is. And don't lie to yourself of what it is. Stop adding the numbers. Stop positioning yourself to where it is and where it needs to be. Go really dig deep into what is actually important, what the why is.
I think it's interesting, with just this, this overall conversation. I think it's very timely. The thing that really stuck out to me about a year and a half ago, when I was at a conference, I was talking to a lot of team leaders, dude, at that conference, and no one was crushing. Like everyone was hurting at the beginning of 2023. And things really have not improved too much between then and now. And now we've got this whole commission lawsuit aftermath to deal with. And that's, we were talking about that a little bit offline too. That's going to compress profitability even more because you cannot convince me that you're going to be able to train dozens, if not hundreds of agents on how to successfully get buyer brokers signed at full commission. I think that you're going to have a lot of agents are going to have trouble getting it signed. And when they do get it signed, it's going to be for less than full commission. And so that's going to, look at your buy side revenues and your profit margins on buy side, and then, cut those by 25 to 50%. Cause I really in 3 years or so, that's what it's going to look like, if not less.
Well, so And that's if before we go to a seller's market. I can't even imagine then. Wait till we go to a full seller's market again.
100%. Oh, dude, great point, right? Yeah, just go to open house and talk to the listing agent.
Well, it's more than that. There's 20 offers on the table. Which one of you is willing to take the least amount of commission so your client gets the deal? Another variable. And it's going to be negotiated, and it's going to be play. And that's going to be a really challenging piece.
It's going to be super challenging. And so, when you look at the different models out there, and to your point, right, Keith, like the history tends to repeat itself. And so, you look at what happened to brokerages 20 years ago, and I think that the same thing is really happening to teams today, where changes in the market and changes in technology are now squeezing profit margins out of teams, just like they did with brokerage 20 years ago. And so now that we're in this same phase, look at what teams are doing now. Let's add ancillary services. Let's add lending, title, whatever. So the question that you need to ask yourself is, do I want to be the pioneer or one of the pioneers in my marketplace and build out this fully leveraged operation for great agents to plug into, right? And plug into my platform? Or are you just a really fucking awesome salesperson? And if you are, then you should probably join an operation that already has that infrastructure in place, and you just print money. Because great salespeople in this market, dude, that's the beautiful thing, that the really good salespeople right now, they actually get a pay bump. They get a pay increase.
Oh yeah.
For like the next 12, 18, 24, 36 months, the greatest salespeople are actually going to make more money now than they did before. And so you just have to figure out what is it that you want? Do you want to build that model, or do you want to, and are you far enough along? Because I promise you, someone that's building it right now from scratch, you're doomed. You're not going to, you will not, it's going to be a uphill battle. If you don't already have,
what's crazy? I was thinking about this the other day. Let's take Phoenix Metro just as an example. There are 35, 40,000 agents now in the marketplace, in the Phoenix Metro. There's a bunch of teams. Everybody on every team is paying for their own systems, their own tools, their own staff, their own payroll. No one's doing it at scale at a very good level, right? It's our team and maybe 2 other teams are even at a functional level of scale. Everybody else is smaller, everyone else. But if you consolidated all of us top teams, and let's say we ran a team jointly of 1,000 agents collectively, we all shared in that expense line and we created efficiencies. Do you know how much more money that model would make? The line of profitability would be?
Yeah.
If people could just say, let's just all do this thing together, and you actually built a company that had infrastructure and departments and, executives that were great at their own tasks, and they didn't try and do everything all at once. And you didn't have to have 12, 15, 20 different CRMs. You didn't need 25 different transaction coordinators. You didn't need 20 lead ops people. You didn't need 25 different sales managers and team leaders. And you consolidated that expense line. Do you know how much more money there would be? And do you know how much better served the individual agent would be to have a dialed operated system of exposure? They were part of that play. The problem is that we're just so fragmented with so many egos separating us that line of sight is really, really hard to cross. And so I'm here to say, we're going to find a way to cross that thing nationally. We're going to get there. Whether we do it or the market does it for us, consolidation is going to happen. And so my challenge is it's going to happen, and it's going to be interesting to see what people say. You know what? I'm going to go join the strength, and we're going to just keep going forward, and we're going to build something momentum, just something really, really big, or we're going to die on the sword. We're going to either blockbuster it or we're going to go join Netflix. It's one of the two. Which one are we going to go and do? And it'll be interesting to see how this market moves over the next, 3 years. I give it 3 years.
100%.
Yeah. Well, fellas, we're coming up on time here. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this episode?
If you've seen any of the podcasts or you know anything about me, you can argue I can sit in a place of ego. And here's what I'll tell you. I'm first in line. I know what Keith is building, and offline, I'm yo, hey, so you never got back to me, dude. I want to, let's do this. I'll reset my team. The reason why is this, because I agree with everything he's saying. Right. And at the moment, it's the opportune time for me to take a look at how can we create synergies? How can we build with one another? and effectively create what you've been talking about and have those efficiencies built in. And so I'd encourage anybody who stumbled across this or intentionally found a video like this where it's like, man, I'm struggling with team. Guys, there's help. As long as you're willing to set aside your ego, there's not just help, but there's a path to way bigger success, right? Without going through all the details, like massive success on the other side of this. It just matters like how stubborn are you to sit in the seat where you're at right now versus how willing are you to adapt, innovate, partner, and ultimately dominate.
Yeah.
Right. It takes a little bit of step back in ego, but then when you're dominating your market, guess what? You get to inflate your ego again if you want to. I'll be honest. I'm looking forward to looking at other people and going, oh, you want to know how I built that so fast from scratch again? Right? Like I just plugged into a better system. I don't know why you're working so hard. Right?
Yep. Yeah. I think about it the same way. How many different companies were trying to do what Amazon did? And at the end of the day, Amazon grew and scaled, and now Amazon is what Amazon is, right? But do you think the person that owned their local online distributor who became the VP of sales at Amazon, like which box do you think they'd rather be? Would they rather be an executive on Amazon's team making a shit ton of money or run their own operation in opposition of an Amazon and slowly see their business get dissolved or struggle? Like, I don't understand, like, why wouldn't you want to be because if you're such a good leader, can you imagine? It's like the Olympics just happened, right? The USA, they had the dream team number 7, whatever they want to call it, right? And you talk about the best players from the whole world come together. Would you rather go and be the guy fighting for your country and know you're going to lose and you're like, it's all right? Or would you rather, be a part of this like organization that's just going to dominate and you got the gold medal at the end of the day, you made more money, you won, you crushed the industry. At what point are us as leaders going to come together and say, you know what, let's all go make more money together and do something no one thought was possible? And the people that let their ego go and come alongside all of us together and say, let's go do something big, they're going to change the industry and they're going to be pinnacles of the industry by doing so. I really think that.
By the way, make more money for a lot longer and have much more flexibility, power,
and have
control
stock in
over
the
their
company,
life. Yeah.
Probably be able to go public, generational wealth of different. Yeah, without a doubt.
So shameless plug here. If you want more information, you want to connect with Keith, all that information and how to do that will be in the show notes. So
and
get with Keith. Get in line. Yeah, get in line.
Get in line behind me. Just slow down. All right, slow down.
I am looking for someone in Nashville, Tennessee. Hey, let me know. Nashville,
Tennessee.
Nashville.
Nashville.
Left field plug there. So let me know.
All right. Love it.